Okay, welcome everyone to our webinar, How Can Heidegger Philosophy Open New Pathways for Therapeutic Practice? Today, we are very glad to have with us Beyza Akgün from Istanbul. Beyza graduating in psychology and later trained in developmental psychology. Working in schools with children and families, she also completed a master's degree in clinical psychology with additional training in couples and family therapy, as well in existential therapy. For the past 8 years, she has been teaching seminars and courses in existential therapy. She was also the first person in her country to complete the advanced training in the advanced training program in this field. Today, she works in private practice as an existential therapist and continues to follow studies in daseinsanalysis and psychoanalysis. She also leads reading groups with colleagues, and this year she will continue with the phenomenology of perception and the being in nothingness. So it's a pleasure to welcome you here today. Please, Beyza, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Roberto. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for this invitation. I follow you and your team's work, actually. You are opening a very important file for daseinsanalysis, both your own country and on the international platforms. I see that. This is very impressive for me because I dream of the same thing for my own country, but there are very few people interested in the subject. Okay, today I've prepared a presentation titled, How Can Heidegger's Philosophy Open New Pathways for Therapeutic Practice? By the way, I'm not familiar with the characteristic and richness of this group. I'm meeting some of you, actually most of you, at the first time. For me, Heidegger is one of the most inspiring philosophers, even though he may not be acceptable to many groups and individuals in political context. Although he verbally rejected his controversial views, some critics reported that his controversial views were undeniable after the publication of the Black Notebooks in 2014. And we had now talked about this before the seminar, but first I want to ask you, the group, when you read Heidegger's work for the first time, when you encountered his philosophy for the first time, what happened? What struck you the most? Does anyone want to share about this interest?
I don't know. I think what strikes me the most was the fact that he was like, I don't know, especially here in Brazil, it's like get rid of all this scientific thinking, positive thinking, positive science that tells what everything is, what we are, who you are, what being are. And this strike me like it's like create a new science without creating, without giving answers. So it was really good to encounter such a philosopher that brings this mystery. You have to deal with mystery, and this strikes me the most in Heidegger's philosophy, especially my therapeutic practice, because I don't like to giving answers or create some boundaries about who people are, because they are always changing. They are always open to the new versions of themselves. I'll answer this way. I don't know if Matthew want to answer.
The first time that I met Heidegger was the concept of time. I think was like open mind. There's no exactly past, present, future. It's like everything together in some kind of way. And this for me, that was the time I realized that, okay, I'm gonna study this guy, because this concept of being time exactly was is most impressive for me.
Thank you for these sharings. Does anyone else wants to share about his or her experience?
Matthew, perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah, I was just trying to get my microphone on. So I trained as a psychologist in the 1980s in England, and I found it really alienating. I didn't recognize myself in any of the courses that I was taking. I specialized in cognitive, some developmental, a lot of biological, a lot of perceptual psychology, and I couldn't find the experience of being a human being in it at all. So the first time that I read Heidegger was probably 10 years later, the 1990s, something like that. And I could recognize a human being in it. I could recognize myself in it, and that was really transformative. So that was and it was unfortunately much later that I discovered all of his political disastrous involvements, which made it very complicated. But that's the first thing I should say, though, was just recognizing my own experience by reading Heidegger and being blown away by that.
Okay, thank you, Matthew, for your sharing, and your perspectives is also says a lot about Heidegger philosophy. These are quite interesting and show some similarities with some of those of mine, indeed. I generally do not like to share personal things at professional meetings, but I do not see any problem in sharing how I came across Heidegger's idea. Although I have been interested in philosophy since when I was very young, I didn't come across this philosopher's name until high school. And I'm not even familiar with whether he was the part of the high school curriculum. But I did participate in the inter-school philosophy Olympics in Turkey. It was three that I first encountered the name Heidegger. We were given three different philosophers and quotes to write essays about, and I had to write about one of them. I was not familiar with Heidegger. A quote of his about technology had been shared. Of course, I didn't choose him. I chose a quote by Rumi from Turkey. Yes, I was very, very young. But then, when I was studying my major of psychology at university, I took some philosophy courses. One of these courses was called Being and Death, which was about Heidegger's philosophy. Heidegger's most famous work, Being and Time, has just been translated in the Turkish. That was in 2008. This, of course, is relatively late date when compared to many other countries. Being and Time was published in 1927. It was translated into English in 1962. I remember that. As far as I remember, it was translated into Japanese and Italian earlier. I remember it was translated in Portuguese in 80s, am I right? Okay.
Yeah. The first translation, I think, is in the 80s.
Yeah. But in Turkish, it was in 2008. The translator was my lecturer. Yes. And reading Being and Time in its original language is a great opportunity, But as we know, the philosopher's idea, which are already difficult to understand, may become even more perplexed when translated. For this reason, it is not surprising to encounter people who attempt to read Heidegger but give up after a short time. However, and as attentive readers and those who find Heidegger's philosophy inspiring will guess, it is possible to gradually learn and understand Heideggerian philosophy. After Heidegger wrote Being and Time, something changed. Things were no longer the same because he said something completely new, especially about 19th century thought and philosophical tradition that has preceded him. Heidegger clearly realized that the question of existence had become unspeakable. According to Heidegger, we must ask the question of being, but the capacities of language and the philosophical tradition produced to that moment seem very limited. Although asking question is important, even one of the most important concepts of being, because when people ask questions, we have preliminary understanding. Even we do not completely understand or see it, we have a kind of preconception when we ask a question. Therefore, we turn to ask questions with curiosity about what is going on around us. And asking questions makes us different from all other beings and things that already exist. In other words, what clearly distinguishes human beings from other physical beings, objects, cats, dogs, plants, and everything else in the world, is our attempts to ask questions about being. Asking questions is absolutely essential. But we feel the need to ask questions because as human beings, we try to understand the things that happen around us. We need to know this because according to Heidegger, humans exist in the world. And if we go back to the Latin definition of existence, that is the etymological root of world, existere, which means, which is outside or something like that. It seems to imply that existence is something outside. But it is not the case. In Heidegger's thinking, there is no such clear distinction between inside or outside. Therefore, there is such certain separation between inside and outside for being in the world. And when I ask the question about being, I feel the need to answer the question about myself. As human beings, our need to ask these questions comes from very deep within us. Of course, we can also come to a point where we are not willing to ask these questions, right? In our everyday lives, everyone is going to take a part of their everydayness, and we can skip or forget to ask questions about ourselves, of course. According to the Heidegger, it is possible to be like everyone else, to behave like everyone else, to dress like everyone else, to eat what everyone else eats, to follow the trends or fashions that everyone else follows, without asking any questions. This is certainly no problem with being present in that. There is no problem about existence in there. It is possible to exist just like everyone else. But it is not really possible to remain without asking any question. This is because Heidegger in Being and Time gives us a very well-structured representation of architecture of Dasein. Although it takes time to become familiar with his language, one of the first things we noticed when we began to read the map of architecture he presents for Dasein is Dasein cares. Before discussing the notion about caring, let's recall why he chose the world is Dasein. Dasein is an everyday expression in German, but translation it is being there is again in insufficient translation even in English. The world doesn't emphasize both being here, that is, the time and space in which I'm inherently present, and sein, which emphasize both existence and always being in action. So when I begin to think in terms of Dasein rather than human beings, as a therapist, I understand the following. No human being I encounter is simply an object standing there, like a table. No patient I encounter is merely the discomfort that defines them, and no one I encounter is merely identity label. That is why we say the Dasein is genderless, ethnically neutral, and simply what it is. Dasein is Dasein. Let me tell you about a mistake I used to make my own thinking. I used to ask the following question, and it took me several years to realize that I was completely wrong. Does child Dasein exist? This question is obviously wrong because Dasein is ageless. If I consider the person I encounter to be deficits in terms of existence simply because their age is young and their life experience is chronologically less, this is completely wrong idea. The Dasein that Heidegger refers to cannot be narrowed down to any kind of rigid definition. When we carefully consider his definition of existence, we clearly understand that any kind of fallen state, throwness, or state of being does not prevent a person from being human. Therefore, there is no such thing as less being. For this reason, in Heidegger philosophy, which is explicitly a philosophy of humanity, description of humanity or being are highly inclusive. It becomes clear that not only the positive or striking aspects, but also fallen and mundane aspects are part of what it means to be human. Humans are not Georges. Humans may be banal. Let me summarize and rephrase the definition of Dasein. Dasein is being in the world, and Dasein's worldliness unfolds in a world of tools, things, and people. On the other hand, Dasein's being in the world, within the world, requires presence and disclosure. This is because Dasein is thrown, fallen, designed, and into the world. Dasein's being in the world is understanding, being in state, and being with everyone. Understanding is the character of existentially. Being in a state points to factuality. The world of everyone is the world into which one has fallen. These three, namely existentiality, factuality, and fallenness, give rise to anxiety. Dasein is therefore in a state of care, but by prioritizing itself and understanding how it is being in the world, it establishes its coexistence with other beings. Another name for this is existence toward that, being toward that, actually. With the voice of conscious rises within against its illegitimacy. Dasein enters into a determination to open up its closedness by rushing forward. At this moment, the future, past, present lose their chronologically quality. Being and time take on the form of existence in time. And now I close a small parenthesis about what or who Dasein is. I return to the most distinctive meaning and characteristic of Dasein, care. Dasein cares because even if some of it is our own choices, we find ourselves thrown into an environment or a situation or relationship. Yeah, we want to understand and know this. Otherwise, this uncertainty and uncanny feeling will surround us. Of course, when we say care, another thing that immediately comes to mind is anxiety, angst. Anxiety is distinguished from the state of emotion in Heidegger's philosophy. It's not the only mood. Anxiety is something that covers the atmosphere of our existence, just as we notice certain weather conditions more easily, such as heavy storm, rain, or fog. We sometimes notice anxiety just as quickly. This is because when we care, we experience many things that we can see and find out about around us and make us reflect. Perhaps the most obvious of these is that we will die one day. Heidegger points to the fact that we are full of possibilities while we are alive, but the reality that we will one day die confronts us, face us with the issue of time. Because that, and inevitably possibility of being, tells us what we do not have unlimited time in the world. Yes, time is another central idea Heidegger's taught. In fact, that as a concept may seem more prominent and often leads to Heidegger's being interpreted as a philosopher of that, but we cannot know that. We have not yet died. We are still here. There is not much to explain about that because we cannot return and come back from it and cannot describe the experience of that. We didn't experience that. We cannot experience that. However, that is not an end in Heidegger philosophy. It is a possibility. This possibility tells us that humans walk on the horizon of time. Heidegger conducts a lengthy analysis of Dasein in being and time and helps us understand the structure of Dasein. Unfortunately, this book is an unfinished work, as you know. And the second part on the question of time has not been written. However, as we can follow in the subsequent parts of the work, the philosopher's statements on time call us to a new awakening. As they did on the question of being, according to him, time is not a subject that can be understood and filled away as science defines it. For him, Dasein is time. So, time should not be understood in a linear way. Even if we look back on our experience and think of a few examples, we can see that time is experienced in a kairotic way, not always chronologically, rather than chronologically. For example, how can the perception of time of a person mourning the loss of a loved one be the same as that of a person waiting a biopsy result of something who sees a gift box they have been waiting for? The same thing applies to the therapy room. Yet set a time frame based on your orientation and the ways you practice. This is usually 45 or 50 minutes. Now I want to ask you, does every session really last 50 minutes?
It's a real question. Here in Brazil, we spend like 45 to 50 minutes with the patient. There are people that stand for 1 hour, an hour and a half. You know, but we use like 50 minutes, so we can schedule pay a patient after patient. You know, hour after hour. So here in Brazil, we do that this way. I don't know if there are any difference there in the U.S., Miles, and the United Kingdom with Matthew, but here in Brazil we follow 50 minutes sessions. But I don't know if the whole time experience, you know, it's like being there.
Yes,
for 15 minutes.
you are answering about your frame, but I'm not talking about the frame. I'm talking about the experience of time, the perception of time. Does every session really last 50 minutes? Probably not. Experience is differently every time. Sometimes we experience it similar with clients. I know client, patient, this kind of words is controversial, but I'm gonna use it. But sometimes the path is completely different for one of us. Moments of silence can also be similar. A few minutes can feel like a break, the revealing of a new thought or possibility, or an overwhelming pain that seems like it will never end. Well, we cannot understand the concepts of time based just on our experience of short period of time. Heidegger described time as a horizon and also mentioned historicity in addition to temporality. We might ask, how can interpret this in a pragmatic way for the therapy room? Quickly, it might be a good idea to first consider the historical condition events at micro and micro levels. Let me ask this simply: is everyone here experienced the year 2025? Again, controversial. Yes, if we open our calendars, it seems so. Roberto and I agreed to meet at this time today. We are not sharing the same space right now. However, we can agree that we are sharing the same time. But even that does not seem to be the case, because the countries we live, the neighborhoods we live, and even the houses we live have different histories and other stories. Of course, we all have completely different stories. None of these stories are independent of our environment, that is, the world around us. So our stories, our family histories, our nation's histories says a lot about perception of time. I repeat here that time is a horizon. And if I return to the therapy room, it will not only be the duration of the session that speaks to the temporality of our encounter, but also its beginning, continuity, and end. You don't analyze the same thing with someone who has difficulty starting, ending, and continuing with an analyst who arrives on time for every session and with whom you have worked for years. You don't follow the same path in a process that involves one session a week as you do in one that involves 2 or more sessions in a week. In such cases, it is necessary to consider how the relationship between the 2 people affects the process. More frequent sessions do not necessarily mean better results. Sometimes we encounter situations where adopting an approach we have not previously embraced it's appropriate for the client. I remember a very shy patient who had serious difficulty expressing their or his experience in words. He said he could come once a month. This person could not articulate sentences even sometimes a single word. And we choose to work with him not once a month, but once every 2 weeks. Normally, I would not prefer this frequency, but the need here was different. There was a big problem about articulation, even a little word. If I had not seen these needs, our meetings will probably have been limited to a few sessions, I think. Each of us undergoes long and difficult trainings and take cares to behave sensitively. However, sometimes what we are trained and rigid approach prevents us from accepting people as they are. It is essential not to allow this to happen. If we can maintain a phenomenological attitude, we can become more sensitive to the ontological rather than the onthic. This is what distinguishes what we do from other approaches, in my view. It will be possible to explain at a long length how Heidegger analyzed being and time, but today I would like to mention another key work. The contents of this text is different and it's not often discussed in existential therapy or daseinsanalysis seminars, as far as I know, but I would like to mention the origin of the work of art. A work that has influenced me both personally and professionally. The origin of the work of art is an essay in which Heidegger poses the question of what a key work of art is. This essay was written following lectures he gave in Zurich and Frankfurt in 1945 and 45 to in 1937. Sorry. It was later revised and published in 50s and 60s. Here Heidegger raises the question of what we should call a work of art. Maybe before moving this part, may I ask you a question again? What do you think? How do we call something a work of art? Modern art, particularly very confusing, with striking examples such as Andy Warhol's scans, banana stack on the wall, or Marcel Duchamp's Fontaine. What do you think? How do we call something a work of art?
Accordingly to the Heidegger text, or I don't know, because I don't know. I think arts is somehow related to creativity. You know, like when we are just open, and then we just wanted to bring something to the world. You know, like I have to create something, and I think art is you know, like we give some perspective about simple things. You know, and this is I don't know how is in your country, but in Brazil, people are trying to, I don't know, create a new sense of art. They are criticizing the modern art because it seems so simple, you know, because sometimes you just have a shoe on the corner, you know, like and everybody stop and watch this shoe. And I don't know if it's simple, but it makes you think about life. It makes you relate somehow different with time. And I think art is related to what you are saying about time, you know, Kairos time, you know, like a thing that make people stop and just think about the world or the surroundings, you know, like I don't know if we can call something oh, this is art and this is not art because of the complexity of the work, you know. And I really like the Heidegger text about the regions of the art. Here in Brazil, we study a lot. It's a really interesting text.
Really?
Yeah. This is my answer. I don't know if it's correct, but I will try my best to answer your
I wonder
questions.
when you face to face, for instance, a painting or statues or something else. What do you think about? This is art, or how could be? This is art.
I don't know. I like to think about every aspect of creation as an art. You know, even this encounter that we are having now. You know, it's art because somehow I have this feeling that I have to organize online webinars, and this is art. We are trying to create something here. You know, like we are also recording, so it's gonna be there for people to watch afterwards. So it's gonna be good. I think this. It's not just a painting or something. It's just things that we create and relate to art this way. You know, I think everything it's like a call to creativity. You know, I like to think about it, art in this manner.
So the meeting is also an art for you.
This meeting, yeah, I think it's art. This meeting, we are trying to, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
For me personally,
So creating
because,
anything, creative
yeah,
anything.
yeah, because you know, like before I sent you like an invitation to be here, you know, like before even I sent Miles an email to be there on the ADI program, you know, how this cannot be art, you know, like you're saying things that are I don't know if you are relating to the time the same manner as I am, but I think it's really fast, you know, like we just spent half an hour like this way. It's good to hear you talking about Heidegger philosophy, and I think inspires me to do another things. And so it's good. It's art. You are inspiring. You know, like I try to relate art in this manner. You know, like we are always trying to create things and together with persons that we like, and why not call art? You know, every creation. You know, like otherwise we are gonna have to be there on the fact that art is just a beautiful thing that people create, like this chair, you know, Herman Miller, and this divan. Oh, this is art. Oh, this whole meeting is art, you know, because it's inspiring me to do another meetings, you know, like I relate to art in this manner. I don't know if Miles have another answer. This Miles.
I'm not sure where your question is leading, Beyza, but let me just say two things that in response to the whole presentation, which I thoroughly enjoy. The book that you mentioned, Being in Time, has recently been first half published as a paraphrase by Thomas Sheehan. This now supersedes the 1962 that you mentioned and a later translation. So So it's a plug for the first volume of this book. But in it, and this is to the point of your question about art, Sheehan suggests that the great importance of this essay is that for Heidegger, he believed that he had exhausted the ontological background for what can be encountered by a human being with his notion of what was vorhanden and what was zuhanden, what was extant, there somewhere, maybe a few feet away, maybe many miles away, and what was available for use. But that he believed that the work of art was a different background for the presentation of world. So I'm wondering if that's the direction that you're heading in with your question about this essay, which seems to be very, very important to you. So those are a couple of thoughts about it. And as a musician, I realize that one loses oneself in performing or painting, as I hear from people who paint, sculptors who interested Heidegger quite a lot, by the way. And in this being lost in the creation of the work of art, its origin, in a sense, we involve ourselves with something that's not there, extant, vorhanden, nor available the way a hammer is, in the classic example, something to be used. So it's not just something that's there, and it's not something that we can use. I can't take a painting and wrap myself in it and be protected from the rain, for example, although I suppose people have done that. So just a couple of thoughts, mostly hopefully informative, and just to hear your response.
Thank you so much for your sharing, Miles. Those are so important points for me. Okay, is there anyone? No, I think no. Okay. Okay, all right. Let me continue my presentation. Heidegger pursues the question of how we should define a work of art and what we should call a work of art. He gives the example of Vincent van Gogh's painting entitled A Pair of Shoes. He asks questions just as we would when encountering a work of art. He says that we might think of scenarios such as what kind of shoes are these? Who does they belong to? Perhaps the owner lives on a farm and has a story like this. Yeah, we face-to-face painting or another work of art. We think a lot of things about the stories of work. But that we can never know the real answer about the story of the work of art. He says that the path to knowledge and understanding passes through the hermeneutic circle. I didn't mention ready to hand or something like the Fürsorge. I'm going to mention about hermeneutic circle. This means that we can only guess at the whole by looking at the parts, and paradoxically, the opposite is also true. So when I look at the Roberto, I didn't know anything about the orientation, lifestyle, or his stories, but maybe we can meet again and again. I can see the whole part of his stories. But I'm still not sure about that. This means that we can only guess at the whole by looking at the parts, and paradoxically the opposite is also true. Now let's think about this in terms of therapy room. Let me think about a client. Maybe a person is not a work of art. Maybe we should think that way. I don't know. Is a person a work of art? Maybe, I don't know. But when we meet someone, there are certain parts of them what we see, and our minds immediately start asking questions and making assumptions, even forming some prejudice. Before any words or statements have been spoken, we form ideas about the person's reality or story based on what we see. I'm thinking about his or her nationality, his or the story about pathology, I don't know. I have many things in my mind when I first encountered a person. Even we didn't speak anything. But it is possible to know the truth. In his work, Heidegger takes the work of art as his subject, and inspired by Aristotle's philosophy, reminds us the Greek concept, which is aletheia. Aletheia is also a girl name, right? In Greek. The truth means truth also. When we look at the origin and etymology of this word, we see that truth is closed and hidden. That is why there is an "a" prefix at the beginning of the word, meaning that truth loves be covered and hidden. It is not immediately revealed. It is not immediately visible, and it is not ready to open to the eye. Truth can be about a work of art or about a person. It is therefore important to emphasize that when we encounter a person, we cannot immediately know their truth. Just as we cannot know this, the person themselves may often not know it either. Even about myself. Am I know all of my parts? I cannot say that I know my truth. I'm searching. Just as we cannot know this, the person themselves may often not know it either, as I said. For this reason, an existential therapy practice or daseinsanalysis requires a patience and the opportunity for an authentic encounter. I believe that we should view human experience in the same way we view dreams and art. Everything that is said or shown exists and reveals its relationship to being. Yes, seeing things as they are is very important for phenomenological attitude, but we must also be prepared to bring into being that which is unseen, unheard, and yet to be articulated. People carry their own truth. just like the truths carried by works of art, and these truths, like those in work of art, are not fixed, just as we can see an unspoken truth when we look at a painting. So it is also possible when we encounter a person, and every encounter is full of new possibilities waiting to be uncovered. Lastly, I would like to emphasize that Heidegger's philosophy is not merely an abstract realm of thought, but a vivid reminder that our therapeutic world begins with being, openness, and care. As therapists, we are often drawn to techniques, theories, or structures, but what is absolutely essential is our ability to encounter another human being as Dasein. Thinking as a Dasein instead of human being, instead of patient, instead of student, is better choice, I think. Human being as Dasein, not as diagnosis, a label or a problem, but as a whole being that emerges in time. This perspective invites us to slow down, listen more deeply, and allow silence, uncertainties, and hidden truths to reveal themselves. In this sense, Heidegger's thought can encourage us to remain authentic, responsive, and attentive in the therapy room, trusting that each encounter holds the possibility of transformation for both our clients and ourselves. Perhaps the deepest gift of this approach is that it reminds us that therapy is not merely about participating in the presence of others, but also about allowing ourselves to be affected and transformed by encounters, so that both therapists and clients continue to grow in the opening horizon of being. Yes, I finished my presentation.
Thank you, Beyza. It was really inspiring. I really like this last part, and we can open for question and discussion if there's any question that people wanna to write, to type, and I can read. It's not a problem at all. I don't know. I got the sense in the last part in your presentation about interpersonal psychoanalysis. I don't know if you know anything about it, like Yalom, Irving Yalom, this thing that we are connected to get. Yeah, we are in this open, and I change as my client changes as well. And I wanted to ask you about it, like. What's the rule about psychoanalysis in your practice nowadays? Because you are telling earlier when we are not recording that that are not daseinsanalysis in Turkey. So what's the impact of your existential approach in psychoanalysis? What you are trying to do when you are there for your patients? Can you describe which psychoanalysis you are trying to do, which existential analysis you are trying to do, what your references in this field, like Yalom, Freud, or Winnicott? Can you tell more about your psychoanalysis work?
Yes, we have a lot of psychoanalysis in Turkey, actually. The psychoanalysis is also inspired me, like Heidegger's philosophy, but there's a something totally different about psychoanalysis and Dasein analysis. because psychoanalysts believe that when think about human beings, there's an organization of psyche or structure of a psyche, but contemporary psychoanalysis is also phenomenological, I think. So those kind of contemporary thinkers from the psychoanalytic area is also inspires me. But they say different things. I don't believe people need to fix or cure or treat. I don't believe in that. My perspective is different, but I'm inspiring. I'm inspiring Winnicott. I'm inspiring Bion. I'm inspiring what else? Winnicott, of course. Winnicott also very close to Heidegger, actually. But it's hard to say that Winnicott read Heidegger's work because there was a controversial historical issues that mentioned about black notebooks. But I think Winnicott read Heidegger's work because he mentions about false self. It's like an inauthenticity. There are similar concepts, actually. But reading Heidegger is something something else, something different. Yeah, I'm thinking about, but I don't like Yalom's essays because Yalom is also inspiring, and there is a lot of contribution about contribution to existential perspective, existential therapy areas, but his essays a little bit soften and light to me, and so pragmatic to apply to the therapy room. But some researchers says that Yalom is like a psychoanalyst, just uses the term that in his works instead of organization structure of psych. He just used that issue, but there are many inspiring existential thinkers instead of Yalom, I think.
Sure,
He's
sure. Yeah, it's controversial. Rafi doesn't like as well. But here in Brazil, he's a very popular thinker. There's a lot of books translated to Portuguese, so he's very popular here in Brazil. And I was wondering if you have any access or touch with Alice Holtz-Haikun's work, and if she inspired you in some way, like she's a daseinsanalyst as well. Do you know her work? Do you have contact with
Yes,
her?
I know. I read the book of her. It was about 10 years ago, maybe. But Miles Grove is inspiring me right now much more.
Okay. I think that Miles already here. He typed that he might leave earlier, but I don't know, Matthew. This is a question. You want to make a question? Please make a comment.
Yeah, just thanks, Beyza. I love the origin of the work of art essay, and so what I just wanted is a question for clarification, really. So as I understood what you were saying, it made me think of the distinction between world and earth that Heidegger writes about in The Origin of the Work of Art. And my interpretation of those two kind of poetic concepts is the world is what can be made explicit, what can be made clear, what can be spelt out in language. That's one way of thinking of that. And the earth is, it goes in the opposite direction, and it goes increasingly concealed. And so it involves, one's deep sense of what matters to one, to myself, for example, what matters in the world. And so one is revealing and one is concealing at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Heidegger describes that as a kind of tension or a strife between world and earth. They're continually pulling and in dynamic interaction. Mm-hmm. So that was, I've never thought about that in terms of what the Dasein analytical session is. But that seemed to me something that were you pointing at that, I don't mean it's a fight, of course not. I don't mean that. I mean, it's a continual uncovering and covering, and uncovering some truth and the covering up of some other truth. Mm-hmm. Being able to get clear about something, if you like, but at the same time concealing what really matters, and that's always going to happen. So you always have this tension between the two in one session, but also between sessions. Mm-hmm. So it was the question of, from me, just a clarification, is that the direction you're heading in, or something different?
I didn't think about the issue just before, but I'm thinking right now there could be a fight also. Mm-hmm. Because it's about time. Mm-hmm. In the session, not before the session, not in the between the sessions. It's about time, and it could be anything, because we are alive. We are not dead right now. Mm-hmm. It could be everything, and we can show, we can open to ourselves to the encounter. Even it could be a fight or something else.
So a whole session, a session in itself can be a fight between those two, and it reveals a whole in itself, and it conceals other possible holes. But the whole session is a kind of fight, and also a kind of work of art in itself.
Does someone think about his or her reality in authentic way? It could be a fight. It's also related to transference, actually. I think there is also a transference issue in existential therapies and dasein analysis. I cannot say anything without a case or something obvious, but we could think about it in a situation. We can face to face what happened in there.
Mm-hmm. That question about what happened in there, is that a question that one has as a reflexive question after a session with yourself, with your supervisor, with who's that with? Between you and me now? Yeah.
My supervision, but not for every sessions, but some sessions needs that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
I think somehow related to the Hausa question. Come on, Hausa, could you ask Beyza?
Okay, please. I was wondering by what you said regarding truth, and what's its relation to authenticity, and the fact that we are faced with a range of possibilities, because I usually work with teenagers, and they want a kind of certainty over their future, their work choices, And I find myself in this difficult situation because I am also one who has done and studied several things, and there is no permanent thing in life, as we see. And I would like you to please enlighten us a little bit more on the word truth for Heidegger, please.
What is your question about is working with teenagers or young person?
Is there seeking certainty in life, and some life choices they would have to make as the best, or something that they would not have to change over their future. And it is this expression of truth that it is intriguing, it is still intriguing to me. And I would like to see your view, please.
Hey, don't forget that. Don't forget that Dasein is ageless. So yes, working with teenage, working a young person, working with the children is something different than working with a adult person. But Dasein is ageless. So face their truths. They of course dreams a lot, act like an superhero or something else, but they have possibilities to experience of their own reality. We cannot prevent or we cannot support them. They have also own choices in authentic way.
Yeah, and I think this is related to the Matthew asked question, because this tension can bring possibilities to be open, you know, like they don't have to search for an answer or being attached to a truth, you know, like that's gonna be with them the whole life, you know, like we can create tension between truths and other thing, and perhaps create these new possibilities. I think it's all related to the boss question. Why not? Why the word not? You know, like
Yeah, we have to ask why not, but we have responsibilities to those children or those teenagers.
and how do you
We cannot forget this.
yeah, and can you talk more about responsibilities and also bring the possibilities? You
When
know,
we
like
talk about security, safety, we have certain responsibilities. But the another topics, the another issues have something solved easily.
like perhaps a teenager that putting their life in risk, like because they are open new possibilities. I think they are Superman, as you mentioned, Monica. Is this the case that you are talking about risks?
Yes, for instance, a suicidal teenager, yeah, suicide is a potential of Dasein, right? In philosophical way. But we cannot we cannot accept this choice.
And yeah, I know we are. I remember a class in the ADI program with Miles that we are talking about freedom, and they ask the same question. You know, like because people are able to choose, you know, like they are free to choose. And I don't know if there's any cultural differences, but when it comes to suicide in Turkey, it's, I don't know. You have to. How do you relate to these risks that people take in their lives? You are interventional, like trying to stop them to make these choices, and not just suicidal, perhaps drugs. You know, like they are using drugs. Do you some I don't know, what are your approach in these cases? Like you try to be more interventional, you like let them choose because they are free and they are daseins and they can open new possibilities to relate with themselves in their zorge and care, and they have to take care of their own life. Or you have another, what do you think about this whole situation? Like when it comes the time that you are allow people to be free, and when people are taking many risks and you have to be more interventional, there are cultural differences, or I don't know.
There are cultural and personal differences, I think, but I think there is a international rule. We are responsible those kind of cases, using drugs or suicidal behaviors, are all those risky behaviors. So I believe in freedom in philosophical line, but I don't want a suicidal person in my therapy room. I have to protect him or her. I believe in life.
That's good. That's good. And Hindenburg write a question. Could you share some thoughts about Rollo May's works? Do you have touch with Rollo May's? Do you know Rollo May's
Yes,
existential?
of course.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to clarify your question, Hindenburg, but you have some thoughts that, like you did on Yalom. Do you follow Rollo May's work? Do you think that's right, or do you think that's wrong? How do you
Rollo
relate?
May is I think is very good about rephrasing and paraphrasing of Heidegger. Please read Heidegger in original way.
That's good. I don't know if if this answer your question, Hindenburg. If you wanna open your microphone.
I'm joking. Rollo May is also a very powerful figure in existential therapy, of course, but he influenced Heidegger's philosophy a lot. I can say that.
Okay, and you were talking about that in Turkey, daseinsanalysis is not that strong. It's more psychoanalysis.
There is no daseinsanalysis.
There's no daseinsanalysis.
There is no.
Just existential or psychoanalysis. And I don't know if I get right. You translate the being in time to your country? Is that it? You are the one. Like if I want a Turkish version of being in time, it's gonna be translated by Beyza Akgün. Is that it?
No.
Have you translated? Yeah, I don't know if I get it wrong. The first of the at the beginning of the meeting, I
no.
think
My professor is. It was translated. Okay. In 2008.
2008.
When I was a university student.
And you think this is somehow related to the fact that daseinsanalysis is not a big thing in Turkey because it just got translated to being in time? Do you think this is going to change in the future? How do you perceive existential analysis or design analysis in your country? You think that, I don't know, starting by you, things are gonna change in the field, or?
Yes, I think a translation is a very big step to understand the philosophical perspective. There is a phenomenological movement which is gradually growing in Turkey, actually. This is impressive for me, but there's no Dasein analysis of institute or training program in Turkey. But most people really interested in philosophy of Heidegger because translation or or the other seminars, works, and essays also essential to understand this area about.
Yeah, here in Brazil we have like phenomenological institutes, you know, like where people can like train their philosophical basis to a clinical practice, and there's the psychoanalytic oriented institutes that that you can be part of the program and become a design analyst. There are many philosophical or phenomenological practice training in Turkey, or because I don't know, is there any a formal institution where you can graduation in phenomenological approach?
For existential therapy, there is, and I also complete a training program on this summer. But people usually prefers behavioralist, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is not quite useful for me. There are several institutions for psychoanalysis. There is one existential therapy a training program in Istanbul, Existential Academy of Istanbul.
That's nice. That's nice. That really interesting. I don't know about the fact that we are here because of your seminar, and I think it's really straightforward. I think it's really inspiring. But I like to make these personal questions to know about your culture and how do you relate it to designs analysis. And can you tell everybody how do you became part of the ADI program? How do you get to know Miles? Can you tell us more about it? You know?
Yes, of course. I was really interested in Heidegger's philosophy, and I was a lecturer in a training program when I was preparing a seminar about the case of Ellen West. I'm searching on Google, and thanks to Google, I found a video about Daseinsanalysis Institute. So I feel very lucky because it's English, not German. So I wrote to Miles Groth. Thanks to his invitation, I start to attend to seminars on Fridays. I think that's it.
And how you think this is impact your practice? You think that being in touch with Miles, with their seminars on the ADI program, how does influence your work with your clients or patients or Daseins?
I cannot say that it's influenced me a lot, but it's very, very useful for me to attend to these seminars because I feel very excited about about meeting people working with Dasein analysis in international way. Oh, there is a person in Brazil knows Dasein analysis. Oh, there is a person in Poland. I feel very lucky about this topic.
And I don't know if you share with somebody about ADI program, but on this group that you are organizing, we are talking about how many people are there, like 50, 100, 200. How many persons are interested in phenomenological thinking and also in design analysis in your country?
I really don't know the exact number, but maybe 50, 60.
Yeah, there's a lot of persons. And you think that people are interested to be part of a DIE program, or I don't know, how do you tell everybody that you have been participating in these Friday seminars? You know, like they see you as a, I don't know, like a big person that has analysis, or the only person that are directly connected to design analysis in Turkey.
Yes, I'm not good at marketing.
You are not sharing.
There are many people, more than 200, interested in basic training program about existential therapy. People do not know if we tell about the importance of Heidegger's philosophy and the clinical practice of the philosophical issue. I have to work hard.
Perhaps this somehow related to the fact that you just got translated the Being in Time in 2008. You were in your presentation, in your bio, you were talking about reading Being in Nothingness from Sartre. It was translated before Being in Time?
No, I think it's later. I'm not sure the exact time, but it may be 2000 about, yeah. It's not earlier. And the phenomenology of perception is newer, actually.
From Merleau-Ponty is new as well?
Yeah, 2018, I think.
Whoa.
It's very, yeah.
Yeah, that's shocking because it's really new. It's just, you know, like, I don't know, Matthew, do you relate to this text before, like Being Time and Being Nothingness from Sartre? Or even Merleau-Ponty?
Merleau-Ponty, yeah, Merleau-Ponty, particularly the idea of style that he has towards the end of Phenomenology of Perception. That I find really, really fascinating, and I've used that a lot. I mean, I'm historically much more of a business consultant and coach than I am a therapist. People should know that. So, well, I don't know if people should know that. Maybe they shouldn't, but anyway, I've said it. But so it's been really important to get a grip on something which Merleau-Ponty names brilliantly with style. And I use wrist design from Origin of Work of Art, Heidegger, as those are equivalent for me, the wrist design and the style, the riff design in the Origin and the style in Merleau-Ponty is very similar. Sartre, no, not since a teenager. Sartre, and I've never read Being and Nothingness, but the Sartre, I have a kind of absolutely classic teenage understanding of Sartre, and you know, very glamorous, very exciting. I probably should read him rather than just think I know anything about him. I don't. I've never thought about him in the therapeutic setting. I think that'd be fascinating. But no, I've got I have a bunch of interests which are kind of distinct around some of the more contemporary French philosophers who came out of Heidegger, if you like, or relate to Heidegger, like Alain Badiou and those people. I think that's really fascinating. And I understand Badiou was a student of Sartre's. So maybe there's some connection there, but yeah, I don't know. I find the question of how people got into this really interesting. And I'm perplexed by Beyza's first comment about not sharing personal things in professional settings. I'm the opposite. I'm all for oversharing in professional settings.
Yeah, I'm oversharing as well. But it's incredible, Beyza, that people in your country just recently got connected with being time and being nothingness, and
Yeah.
perhaps you're gonna be the first daseinsanalyst in the whole country as well. Because I don't know, what's the future holds for you? Do you think about, I don't know, living in the US and perhaps being part of the American Psychoanalytic Institute, like, because you have to do the training analysis in person to become a candidate in these programs all around the world. How do you perceive this? How do you see this? Because
Yeah,
it's a really new thing, right, in Turkey.
yeah, I dreamed a lot, but I want to be personal, but it was a bad year last year for me. There are several funerals, and I lost my friend. She was suffering from cancer. So I'm just standing in there, but I'm going to start. I'm going to start as a design analytical way, but time is not suitable to me in these off days. So I'm waiting the right time for me. Of course, I do a lot of things to understand the perspective of a phenomenological way. Maybe we prepare another seminars to compare being nothingness and being time, and also the perception of phenomenology. But I don't know I don't know right now what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to start.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear. We were just talking about personal things, and you just just shared this. I'm really sorry to hear that you just lost your friend. This is not a funny thing, but yeah, I really like to thank you for being here today. It's really interesting to hear about how can Heidegger philosophy open new pathways for therapeutic practice, especially yours, because it's not strictly oriented by being time, but Oranges of the Art, who's another essay that I really like about Heidegger, because it really brings this whole tension that opens new possibility for people to ask about themselves, who I am, who I will be. And I don't know about the tension that we create this today in this meeting, but perhaps we are just witnesses the new possibilities of daseinsanalysis in our country, because it's I got the sense that that's a really new thing, because it just got translated being time, just got translated being nothingness. And I don't know about these people that are interested in existential thinking, that are I don't know, students, if I may call. All of them know English. Are they connected with they because you can share the international webinars that we are trying to do here. It's good.
I'm gonna share.
Yeah, please. So I don't know if anybody has further questions. I don't know if anybody want to say anything, some thoughts. Perhaps Miles. I don't know if Miles are still there. No? Everybody okay? So I think that we can end this session with Beyza. I don't know if you have any final thoughts, Beyza, that you want to share.
Thank you so much for this invitation again. It was a pleasure to me. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure as well for us, because when I try to manage these seminars online, we don't know what's going to happen, and it was really good to hear more about you, and I know that's not easy to come here and, like show your face and even include Miles, you're talking about theoretical things
Yes,
about
of
Heidegger with with our professor. So it's I know that's not easy. So I wanted to thank you for this, because you have to have courage to be here and present in English. I know that's harder for me just to make questions in English, even to present something. It's very brave, and thank you for being here today. It was really a pleasure to know more about your culture and what's going on in Turkey. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know if Maria wanna ask something. Just show your face. Okay, so thank you everybody for being here. We just gonna close this session and hope to see you, the Brazilians, in the next week. We're gonna have a Brazilian presentation, and next week we are gonna have Pedro Munhoz, that also a fellow from ADI program. In September, Matthew, you're gonna be here. I'm gonna present for us as well. So thank you again. Thank you, Beyza. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you all for being here today. And see you later. See you there. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.